Okay, so if you did not know this, then I'll be worried. But the theme of DRIF in Nigeria this year was, or is, digital inclusion as where all rights begin. So, Paradigm Initiative has always prided itself with bringing into the room various stakeholders. And today, I think we have done this. We have discussed data rights with businesses and civil society organizations. We discussed women and their rights online. We have discussed people with disabilities, and now we are here to discuss the media. So, why is the media and journalists, why is it an important thing to talk about? Well, they have the tools to reach large numbers of people and inform them on key issues ranging from policies to elections and so on and so forth. They have radically altered the ways in which government institutions operate, the way political leaders communicate, and more. The Nigerian media, if you've ever read any About Us page of a Nigerian newspaper, they always boast of being the springboard behind Nigeria's independence and our democracy. So we see for a fact that the media is important. And I'm sure a lot of journalists in the room, them and those seated here, can agree with that. So in virtually all of the sessions that we've had, we've spoken to the need for awareness and how much people just do not know. And who else is better to help us fix that lack of awareness than the media? But as an organization, having dealt with journalists a lot, there has been a gap that we have seen, which is that a lot of journalists also do not know. So when you're having conversations about digital rights and digital inclusion, lots of journalists have also not encountered topics. As such, when we found such a knowledge gap, it was pertinent for us to, it was why we took the immediate opportunity to partner with the WIT Center for Journalism under the African China Reporting Project, which Bongiwe will speak to better, where we integrated some journalists into our Digital Rights Academy, bombarded them with information on digital rights and inclusion, and sent them off, so to say, to report on these issues. So this panel hopes to get them to speak to what it was that they reported on, what their challenges were, and their experiences in such a short amount of time. So now that you have a brief on what this is going, or on what's going to happen, we're going to get into it. So we'll start with Bongiwe, who would speak to the impact of the project, the collaboration and the partnerships, and then we would get into the journalists and what it was that they reported on and what they encountered during this time.
Thank you so much, Khadija, for that warm introduction. And thank you everyone for having us. Molweni Dumelan, Sanibonani, Nda, and those are some of the few greetings from our official languages in South Africa. So I am Bongiwe Tutu, and I'm the acting project coordinator of the Africa-China Reporting Project. And I will be speaking on the impact of the project in its engagement within digital identity systems, data and technology in Africa. And also, this is all captured in the books that we're going to be distributing after this session so that you can learn more about the project's work and the work that has been produced by the journalists which we supported. Oh, sorry, where should I be pointing this? Oh, there. So the Africa-China Reporting Project is based at the Center for Journalism, and that's at the University of the Witwatersrand, which is commonly known as WITS University. The project has been operational since 2009 with the aim to improve the quality of reporting on African and Africa-China issues by providing facilitation and capacity building for journalists. And this is in the form of reporting grants, skills training workshops, reporting resources, networking, and other opportunities. So over the years, the project has grown organically and has placed more importance on African perspectives while expanding the scope of its partnerships and collaborations. And those are just some of the collaborations and partnerships that the project has engaged in within the workshops and training for journalists and cross-border investigations and media impacts. And then these are images from some of the workshops that we have hosted within African countries, including South Africa, Ethiopia, Cote d'Ivoire, and Kenya. Okay, so it was with the generous support of Media Network in 2019 and partnership with Paradigm Initiative, which began in 2021 as introduced by Khadija, that the project was able to advance its network of journalists and facilitators with targeted training and reportage on digital identity systems in Africa and the concepts of good ID and issues around data privacy, surveillance, and technology in Africa. And so to this particular focus, the project awarded reporting grants to 19 journalists in total, spread across the continent and in China, while upskilling them via their participation in training workshops. And so you'll see the trained journalists on the image on my right, and the book that we're going to be distributing at the end of this session on my left. So the book captures all of the stories which are informing of Africa's developments within digital identity, data, and technology from local and ground level perspectives. So at the core of the project's objectives is to amplify Africa's voices in its development as it continues to engage with other global players. And as the continent ventures into the technological revolution of the African Union on the Africa we want, in its Agenda 2063, which is Africa's blueprint and master plan for transforming Africa into the global powerhouse of the future. Inherent within all of the AU goals is the technological data and AI-driven systems, which will or need to be implemented in order to achieve all the set goals. And as we align Agenda 2063 goals with the UN's SDGs, we are spearheaded to develop at an accelerated pace, which could influence changes of cutting corners or violating some human rights. And as at 2019, an estimated 500 million African citizens were still without formal online identifications. And according to the World Bank, approximately 1 billion people worldwide lack official proof of identities. So this has given rise to new and distinctive digital identification projects that are being implemented across some African countries, many with an economic development agenda and others with national security goals. The private sector has also played a key role in the development of these systems. And although African governments have enacted laws to collect personal data, very few ensure that the data is recorded, stored, and used in a manner which protects and promotes the privacy of users. And as at 2017, only 17 of the 54 African countries have enacted comprehensive personal data protection legislation. So this translates to the work that still needs to be done, and which is to inform of these policy concerns for the Africa that we want. So the project is very proud to have supported journalists to uncover these socioeconomic concerns and report on what the public is not aware of when it comes to data and issues around technology and privacy in Africa. So community by community, the journalists have investigated how the lives of ordinary people are affected within the adoption of digital identity systems and technologies. And these publications have been very impactful in forming society and influencing policymaking. The report by Nigerian journalist Kunle Sani, which was published in the Premium Times, is an example of this. Following the reporter's findings on how digital loan providers breach data privacy and violate the rights of Nigerian citizens, a subsequent report indicated that a crackdown by Nigeria's federal government Consumer Protection Agency on digital loan firms that were abusing the rights of citizens in the country. So furthermore, as a result of this report, the Nigerian government was able to track down a specific loan company which maintained a reputation of infringing on human and digital rights. Then an investigation on Cameroon's civil status registry, which was published by journalist Aminata Ngengu, was also produced, and this investigation centers on the acceleration of the digitization of civil status registry in Cameroon. And the report brought awareness to communities on the importance of the civil status registration and highlighted positive impacts of the government's achievements from its initiation. This is not to say that there weren't any obstacles that were experienced within Cameroon's digitization, and that is highlighted in the investigation by Cameroon journalist Solomon Tembang, who published in the Guardian Post Daily. And the report assessed the struggles and efforts of obtaining Cameroon's digital national identity cards and the measures that were taken by the General Delegation for National Security, which is intended to tackle the problems that are plaguing the delivery of these important documents. And one of the measures was to increase the daily production capacity of the IDs from 10,000 to 15,000 per day. And in July 2021, the Cameroon government launched its new national passport production center in Yaoundé, which currently produces biometric passports within 48 hours after registration of the applicant. And so the power of the fourth estate and its capacity to of advocacy in society and implicit ability to frame socio-political issues is recognized from these series of investigations. And in a report which was published in Nine Metrics by journalist Michelle Agor, who's part of the panel, looked at the impact of double registrations in Nigeria's elections as an issue of the Independent National Electoral Commission. And she will be speaking more about that during this session. Furthermore, Tunde Omolehin investigated data for fraud, how biometrics exposed Nigerians to cyber thieves, and enhancing the voice of minorities. We have Ifedaya Olumieni, who investigated the persons living with disabilities who have tried to no avail to enroll for the compulsory national identity numbers, which must be linked to their phone numbers. Furthermore, advocating for minority groups, health workers in Nigeria are violating the rights of patients with impunity. Further advocacy reporting was done by Eric Ojo, who published on the importance of bridging the digital gender-based digital gap, and particularly in northern Nigeria. And lastly, we have reports done by Hannah Ajagaye in the International Center for Investigative Reporting, where first-hand experiences of journalists being surveilled, threatened, detained, and tortured is exposed. So this is just to mention a few of all the reports that were produced by the journalists supported by the project, and you'll be able to see and read up on all these in the books that we'll be distributing after the session. And it's unquestionable the impact by all the journalists, and we commend their commitment to constructive storytelling and informing the public and influencing policy making and good governance from the ground up. So this is the full contents of the book, which comprises of 5 sections, assessing the digital identity systems, biometric technologies, civil rights, gender and democracy, data rights, privacy, and technology in Africa. And the book also includes 2 workshop reports, which have numerous resources and tools for journalists and academics and other professionals. So, not to take too much time, I'd just like to thank everyone who was involved in the production of this volume and everyone who assisted in the hosting of the 2 workshops, firstly held in 2019 in Johannesburg and last year in Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you, Khadija, for your support, and to the Greater Paradigm Initiative team. And that's it for me. Thank you.
I'll go straight to the point because I have just 5 minutes. I wrote on the use and ownership of double or multiple permanent voters card and its threat to democracy, basically talking about the abuse of digital rights by Nigerian electorates. So first of all, I'd like to also say that I'm a broadcaster, I'm a broadcast journalist, and I work in a talk station. And very, very important and very much of the core of my job is around news, current affairs, and politics in Nigeria. I'm very passionate about Nigerian politics. I'm very passionate about Nigerian news, Nigeria's impact in Africa, and also international news. So knowing back in 2021 that the 2023 elections is fast approaching, I decided to write an investigative piece on the PVC. We do understand that I think sometime last year, INEC introduced the CVR, which is called the Continuous Voters Register. And it was a new initiative and the best thing from, or the newest best thing from INEC, trying to get people registered online first so the physical INEC offices are not overly crowded. However, I did realize that sometimes during my radio show, people will call me from different parts of Lagos telling me that, oh, they don't believe in voting, they don't believe in this PVC thing, they don't believe in INEC, they're not going to vote. And voters' apathy is one thing that has kept us under regressive and oppressive governments. So, and people will call in to say that, oh, I've seen someone with more than 1 PVC. How can one person have 3 PVCs? And you want me to believe INEC is serious? So these accusations became way, it was just too much. And every time they would call with that accusation, I never have anything to say because I'm not INEC, but I decided to do some digging as to whether or not it is possible for someone to have 2 PVCs or more than 1 PVC. And alas, it is true. You can have more than 1 PVC. But the most important question is, can you vote even with more than 1 PVC? Can you vote multiple times or vote more than once? The answer is a capital no. So whether you have 10 PVCs, 200,000 PVCs, you cannot have more than 1 vote. And I'll tell you why. That's because, well, number one, INEC through the Nigerian House of National Representative or Senate, you can only vote in 1 polling unit. If you travel from one state or 1 polling unit to another, You cannot vote in more than one polling unit. That means that you cannot vote more than once in an electioneering year. That's number one. Because if you go to these polling units, if your name is not on that notice board, you're not voting, number one. Number two, you most likely get arrested as well, or beaten or something. That's one. Number two reason why you cannot have more than one vote is when you vote, there's usually an ink that they put on your thumb or maybe your index finger, and there's no voting after that. So that's number two. Number three, we have the INEC right now. They do have the fingerprints identification. So even if you have 10 PVCs or you have a twin sister or a twin brother or whatever, no two people can have one thumbprint or one fingerprint. So you cannot vote. And recently, with this new CVR, they have a bimodal system, meaning if you go to any polling unit to cast your vote, besides your thumbprints or your fingerprints recognition, they also have a facial recognition. So your face is also in the INEC server. And should you go to more than one polling unit to vote, you'll be immediately arrested. So I did a whole lot of digging, and I was able to bring all this truth. And finally, as a journalist, I can now go about to talk about it or have at least some responses when people ask questions about the credibility of voting. I hope somewhere with this investigation and reports that somewhere someone here sitting down who has these questions or doubts can understand that it is impossible to vote more than once in Nigeria.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So
Thank you.
I was about to stop you. And I'm very sure that a lot of people have a lot of things to say about that. But we're not going to get into it now.
You can ask me the questions when you see me. I have
Right.
all the...
Hello. We still have to speak to other people. Write your questions down.
Please write them. Thank you.
Write your questions down. So we're going to move to the next journalist so that he can tell us what it was that he discovered as well. Who is Ifedayo Ogunyemi, who wrote on persons with disability suffering compulsory NIN enrollment. Yeah. So 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ifedayo Ogunyemi. I've been working with people with disabilities for a couple of months, or let me say years, and I think that was actually what informed the reason why I wanted to delve into the challenges of people with disabilities while registering for the national identity number. But the issue is that when I had discussions even prior to going to the field, the issues pertain to how they were able to get access to some of these buildings, particularly because we have a national act in Nigeria that actually caters for the specialty, the need to actually cater for the needs of people with disabilities when registered for this compulsory NIN. So when I got to the field, I found out that, okay, before that, as of today, the federal government actually got a grant from the World Bank to increase the number of people with NIN records. I think by 2024 or 2024, there should be about 140 million Nigerians on the NIMC record database. But the issue is that they gave a lot of targets as to number of women that should be there, as to number of children that should be in that particular target. But then I found out that the target for people with disabilities is not included in the data set that was made available. So I went out to investigate, and by December 2021, Nigeria has registered 71 million people on the NIMC database. As of now, we don't have a definite number of people with disabilities on that have been captured by that particular database. So some of the things that I found out is that what are the challenges of people with disabilities when I got to the field? There's this 52-year-old woman in Ogun State, Bolaji, who has leprosy. As of today, she enrolled for NIN, and then for over 8 months, and even up to now, she hasn't gotten an NIN, the 11 unique numbers. What are the issues? The issues were created, the challenges was created because of the fact that the names were probably misspelled and they can't get all of this stuff. Then during the course of my investigation, I went to a lot of enrollment centers and found out that some of these buildings, facilities that are actually where these registrations take place, they are not disability friendly. People with disabilities cannot access them. And I appreciate previous speakers who spoke in the previous sessions. They actually hammered on these particular things. These are some of the things they actually found out on the field. And I brought all of them together to report about them to actually help create an advocacy for them. And because there are lots of disabilities and there are lots of needs that actually should focus on. But then people with disabilities today have been cut off, but particularly like Balaji now, she can't make phone calls. You can call her, but she can't make phone calls because the number has been bad. She can't. Another person who lives in leprosy in Ogun State, too, I think Sunday Lighton, can't even get money. You can't send money to him. He has to use another person's account to do that. So a lot of these atrocities, or let me just say atrocities, yeah, if you allow me, are some of the things that we are subjecting people with disabilities to because of the fact that certain public buildings are not accessible to them. People.
Okay,
and,
if I'd have to stop you there. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
So I'm trying to keep to time in a way that allows for the audience to contribute as well. So you'd have to forgive me. So we'll quickly speak to Temitope Obayendo, who wrote on how Nigerian health workers violate patients' rights with impunity. That's interesting. That's an interesting heading. So tell us about that.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Temitope Obayendo. I work with Pharma News, health publication. We've been into health publication for over 40 years. That is Pharma News. We publish, if you're in the health sector, you know us. So we've been dealing with patients, we deal with healthcare events and all that. So when the opening for the African China reporting came up, I saw that gap that I need to look into how patients' rights have been protected digitally and offline. So I went into it. I started with excitement, setting out to administer about 500 questionnaires to patients because it's an hospital-based interview. So I was to interview, or I interviewed, I sampled 10 hospitals in Delta State and in Lagos together, 7 in Lagos, then 10 in 3 in Delta State. So I started with lawsuit, hoping to administer questionnaires to 500 patients, but I was turned back because by the time I set out to do it, to see how patients' rights have been really upheld, I saw that the opposition of public hospital officials to interrogation, to investigation was alarming. So I had to just recall and, I need to go back to the drawing board. Thanks to Bongiwe here, as I was going on, I was giving her the feedback. She had to encourage me that if I can't do that, then maybe I should reschedule my sample size to 250 so that I can administer the question. So I started, and it was so shocking because hospital management officials, they will tell you, you can't administer questionnaire to our patients. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. And I was now really interested. I said, okay, so if you guys are preventing us from administering questionnaires to patients, that means there are things hidden here. So that is the more reason we have to investigate what is actually fishing out. And truly, I found out because I was to find out awareness about patient bill of rights, which is stated by the Consumer Protection and Commission that should be displayed in all hospitals. I don't know how many of you as a patient, because at the time or the other, you will be a patient or have been a patient. Your private hospital or your public hospital, has anybody display the patient bill of rights to you for you to know your rights as a patient so that you can talk one-on-one with your healthcare provider to say, okay, this is the way I want it, this is what you do. But I've discovered that most public hospitals in Lagos, in Delta State, were not having patient bill of rights display. Coming to Nigeria data protection regulation, we find out that most patients were not even aware of how their healthcare data should be treated. They don't even know. Then who will enlighten them? By the time I spoke with Federal Consumer Protection Commission, they said it is the what is it? It is the media, it is the other advocates that should let them know, whereas it is their own responsibility. So it was discovered that a lot of gaps. No, there is no little or limited awareness of patients. So that is why, as media persons, as advocates, we don't have to keep quiet, because we have discovered that there are several policies in the Nigerian system that are not being implemented. And if we don't talk about them, if we don't dig them out and put them on the front burner, nobody will do them. There will not be implementation, and patients and others will be denied their rights. So we need to continue doing it like the investigation find out. Thank you.
That was fantastic. You kept the time. Thank you. So, interestingly, I've never heard of the patient's bill of rights. Like, has anybody shown anybody patient's bill of rights here? Has anyone heard of that? Yeah, that was interesting. Okay, so we'll speak to Tunde now, who wrote on. I love the topics and how they were couched, and you just know this is how journalists work, which is why Michelle was asking why it's so bad to market yourself in a particular way. Because that's how journalists write. Just listen to this heading: data for fraud. How biometric systems expose Nigerians to cyber thieves. And you're like, so today, tell us about that.
Thank you very much. The story was based on my personal experience when I was about to get my national identification card. So I went for the registration. In the hall, it was overcrowded, and secondly, I saw a lot of white papers around on the ground, so I just picked one or two papers, and I discovered that it contains individual biometric data, those ones they have completed. And I asked one of the officials, he said, no, we have done the registration, but the system failed us, so we have to abandon those papers. And those papers, those data, they were so vital. You can see the date of birth, you can see the phone number, and even the BVN, and other vital numbers. So, and when the opportunity comes, I pick almost 5, and nobody, where will I drop it? They say, no, don't worry, just leave it up. So when the opportunity comes, I developed that idea, and I picked 2 states, Lagos and Osun. Osun happened to have high record of Yahoo activities or something like that. The job based on EFCC.
You have to define what Yahoo is for the class.
The internet fraudster, cyber fraud, yes, internet fraudster in Nigeria. So I pick these 2 states, and I also engage about 20 respondents, including 2 officials, 5 data security experts. I got all what I wanted. In the course of my story, I applied 3 things to generate data as much as possible. And thank God for the event, the Abuja event organized by Paradise Initiative. That really equipped me a lot. That really equipped me a lot. So I was able to base my report on 3 components. That is the data and the investigation and the storytelling, which I trail some of the victims and get vital information from them.
Thank you. So these were I don't know. It sounds, these were such interesting stories that you wrote. And just hearing about how much data was collected is even more impressive to me because a lot of the time we find that these days we find stories that come out of nowhere without a basis, a lot of misinformation here and there.
I didn't vote 2015. I didn't vote 2019. So I went to pick up my PVC to, what's it called, do a change of location PVC at Yaba here. And on getting there, I gave them my details, date of birth and phone number. And they told me that my record does not exist. So what I got from that was that, one, maybe somebody, as an IT person, maybe somebody had the data had been updated to somebody else's name over there at Ekiti for election fraud. Me getting back to Lagos to register again, ordinarily putting the date of birth enough should get my details out and to maybe add it with my surname. So your conclusion, I'm not crediting your investigation. I've seen people have two voters cards, and then we will go elections in Nigeria. You do this week for state, the other week for federal. It means I can do in Lagos today, and if my data happen to be in Ekiti, I'll go back to Ekiti and do the one because in Surulere, to be precise, we abandoned the electronic what's it called device because it didn't work, and they had to go back to the physical voters register, and that one will not capture the biometric information of me as a person.
All right.
So how do we control that?
You've asked, I think, 2 or 3 questions. Your first question, when did you register for your, can you please give him the microphone? When did you register for your PPC?
I did it myself in 2011.
2011.
Yes.
Now, in 2011, INEC still struggled with data management at the time. Registering for a voter's card, people had to come to you in person or they come to your streets. It had nothing, they had no CDR.
There was 2011. We had.
They didn't have.
Okay.
They did not have. They did not have a controlled data at the time. I think this was during the pre-Jega's administration. I think Professor Jega's administration.
It was Jega's time.
Okay, so they did not have a properly managed database at the time. I'm answering your questions. There was no push or drive for data management, and I think not just with INEC, but with the entire country in different sectors. Up until recently, after Jega left, that was when data was properly managed. That's number one as to why you can search the CDR system and your name will not be there. At that point, you'll be required to start afresh and register again. Your second question was on people can vote multiple times if they vote from here. That is absolutely untrue. You cannot vote. You said you registered in Ekiti State and you vote.
In the case where the INEC device doesn't work and they end up
Yes,
going
so
back to the
now,
physical register,
Yes.
how
now,
will you control that?
Now, thank you for that. As of recently, that has been completely scrapped.
It happened in 2019 in Surulere.
As of recently, quotes, that has been completely scrapped because that is exactly what the politicians use to steal votes. So when the smart card reader doesn't work, what they normally would do would be to vote in person. And that's why people go steal these boxes because now there's a smart card reader problem in that polling unit. They go thumbprint this thing behind and submit. And that's why we have recurrent court cases with elections. You will hear invalid because in a particular place, smart card readers didn't work. And because the smart card reader didn't work, that particular polling unit or region will be cancelled or called invalid. That is because recently, as far as Edo State election with the Obaseki, and Osun State election, and Ekiti State election, and Anambra State election, all recent elections had invalid votes. That's something you'll never hear during Jega. That's something you'll never hear in 2015, that specific places, or actually you heard, but you won't hear it in 2019. That is because that process has been completely scrapped. So if the smart card reader doesn't work, you will find that INEC will go back to that place to conduct another election. They will not allow the thumbprinting because politicians and thugs steal these ballot boxes to go use them. Let me. Does that answer your question? Let me stop you. Hold on. Is everybody going to ask Michelle a question?
I'm talking from recent. I'm talking from recent, elections.
So I don't know what to do with this room. I'm worried. Okay, his hand was off. You see, it's a very difficult place to be to defend the government.
Trust me, I'm not defending. I'm just basing off of my investigations and what is obtainable and what is currently happening with INEC. I'm not speaking about Jega's era. Sorry.
Please, let's keep it short.
I will. Thank you, all the journalists who have reported, and you've done wonderfully. The reason I'm interested in Michelle's investigation is I'll provide in 2 seconds. I'm a lawyer. I was involved in the I was involved in the 2014 Niger East and Saraba election petition. I represented INEC in the 2019 Lagos Central Senatorial Election Commission and Lagos Mainland Federal Constituency Election. I still currently work for INEC. So I wanted to find out some of the conclusions you made, especially with regards to voters not being able to vote twice. How did you arrive at that conclusion? And I'll ask, the reason I ask that question is this. Some of the things we have to do at the petition, right, is deal with issues of double voting, double registration, and I'm talking of very recent elections, including the Anambra elections that held last year, November 6th. I'm representing INEC currently with respect to that election at the Federal High Court Division in Abuja. So that's why I'm very interested because.
All right, just because there's no time and we have to keep it brief, like you promised. I'm yet to see a scenario, especially with the recent bullet points that I gave earlier, as to how someone can vote twice. Let me remind you that first of all, we have polling units. Can I have your audience, please? You asked the question. First of all, they are polling units. If my polling unit is in Surulere, Ward 1, I cannot go to Ikorodu and vote. Yes, I cannot. And if I go there and they check the list of those represented in that polling unit and my name is not there, I cannot vote there. And if I actually do vote there, for example, and they give me a thumb ink, how is it that for an election that is a one-day thing, especially that of the presidential election, how is it that you can move from Ikorodu and go to another polling unit and vote with your thumbprint and with a record that has shown that you have voted for that day? How is it possible?
Sorry.
Okay, hold on.
Tell me how it's possible. I just want to learn from you how it's possible. You said you work with INEC.
You can talk about it at lunch.
Okay, sure.
Let's do it now. Let's do it now. You see, the reason I was specific with my question was specific how you arrived at your conclusion. And now what you have told me is that because of the way the system is designed, it is meant to ensure that once you've voted, the record is captured and makes it impossible for you to do it again. I understand that, and that is why I said theoretically you're correct. But why I do not agree with the conclusion is the fact that what reality presents is different from that conclusion. And I've given you specific examples. Hold on.
No, you haven't given me an example.
Okay, now
I want you to practically just tell me, just keep it brief. You work with INEC, so just tell me how you have seen someone vote here.
All right,
and just
I'll give you
a
specific example. One of the challenges that Onitiri, those in Lagos know Onitiri very well. One of the grounds for the challenge of Tinubu's election in 2019 was that there was double voting. Okay? He came to court, the tribunal, with INEC EC8 form, where details, of course, when you register, there's a master list INEC has. And he was able to demonstrate, all right, that there were polling units, all right, in Lagos, where persons registered twice and voted. The only reason, one of the reasons we succeeded in that election was that at the end of the day, in fact, the tribunal itself was an opportunity for us to carry out an analysis. Okay?
You didn't tell me how it happened. Let's not talk theory. I'm not
talking theory.
You're explaining what happened in court. Give me a practical. Tell me how someone can vote twice. How? That's just
happened.
No, that is happened. And it's happened. It's your word against mine. Tell me how. Okay, how it can happen. I told you how it cannot happen. Tell me examples. Tell me how it can happen. How? I'm a journalist. I want to learn how. How is it possible? How did it happen? That's how you can convince me. The how.
Excuse me. Hello, house. Wow.
You can't narrate a court case as fact. Yes. Except to tell me how it happened.
Okay.
You can't explain how. I'm not saying it's not fact. You said he demonstrated how it happened, and I want you to demonstrate that for me. That's all I'm asking. How did it happen?
I need this to end right now. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad that we are also passionate about our country. And I hope that this means if you have PVC and it's not just noise,
Please have your PVC.
and you will vote in 2023, but this is not what brought us here, okay? Also, lunch ends by 4 o'clock, so I need to send everybody out of here and downstairs to eat. So unless you want to continue arguing, okay. You can discuss at lunch. I'm so sorry about the time constraints. I understand that we're also passionate about this. I was enjoying this a little too much, to be honest, before I was told to end the session. So, in conclusion, I'm sorry, we're not going to take any more contributions. But on the plus side, you have a lot to talk about at lunch. So, we're moving on. Thank you so much to Bongiwe and through her the Africa-China Reporting Project. You find that a lot of journalists, not journalists, a lot of what we find are people reading blogs these days and nothing concrete. We've been fed with a lot of misinformation and disinformation. So I want to extend my gratitude to the Africa-China Reporting Project for funding something so wonderful. To say thank you to the journalists for putting the effort they put into investigating the work that they did. The journalists on this stage and the journalists sitting down here. I want to say thank you for your work. We hope to see less sensational. But thank you very much. The media is so important to the work that we do, and I hope that we'll be able to continue to partner with you. Please keep the fire going.